Hello, Mustangs. Today we are going to be wandering into the world of appositives, and we're going to use an inquiry-based method where I'm going to give you some mentor text, and I want you to try to figure out what each of the texts are doing and why they're doing it. So we're going to need our observation skills. I need you to be Sherlock Holmes, Scooby-Doo, Nancy Drew, all of those investigators who solve mysteries. Today we're going to be solving the mystery of appositives. So I want you to read the following pieces of text, and I want you to be looking for anything that they have in common, anything that you see happening in all four pieces of text. So the first one, suddenly Rosalie, his blonde and breathtaking sister, turned to look at me. Once they were in her office, a small room with a large welcoming fire. Professor McGonagall motioned to Harry and Hermione to sit down. Keith, the boy in rumpled shorts and shirt, did not know he was being watched as he entered room 215 of the Mountain View Inn. Fudge, a portly little man in a long pinstriped cloak, looked cold and exhausted. So I want you to study those four pieces of text and look for things in common, not just what they're saying, but maybe how they're written. And please don't just say, they're all in blue. That's not what we're looking for. Now, to give you a little extra help, I want you to focus on the portion in red. Suddenly, Rosalie, his blonde and breathtaking sister, turned to look at me. Once they were in her office, a small room with a large welcoming fire, Professor McGonagall motioned to Harry and Hermione to sit down. Keith, the boy in rumpled shorts and shirt, did not know he was being watched as he entered room 215 of the Mountain View Inn. And Fudge, a portly little man with a long pinstriped cloak, looked cold and exhausted. What is the purpose of the portion in red? What is it doing? Hopefully, you answered that the portion in red is actually renaming, identifying, or clarifying the person or the thing in front of it. So notice his blonde and breathtaking sister tells us more information about Rosalie. A small room with a large welcoming fire actually tells us more information about Office. The boy in rumpled shorts and shirt tells us more information about Keith. And a portly little man in a long pinstripe cloak tells us more about Fudge. Because, to be honest, if I just read that sentence without the red, I might have thought, hey, I only know that fudge is a type of candy that you eat. But here, obviously, Fudge is a man. Each of those portions in red is an appositive or an appositive phrase. So, here's today's objective. By the end of this lesson, students will know how to use commas to correctly set off words, phrases, and clauses. The other thing I hope you noticed was that each of those portions in red had a comma on either side of it. So this is where I might want you to take some notes in your English notebook, write it down on a piece of paper, something, because this is the important information that you're going to need to know. So the very first thing is I want you to write down this pattern of sent, comma, appositive, comma, ends. And you might be thinking, what does that even mean? Well, I want you to notice that the part in green actually forms the word sentence, and the appositive in red is coming right in the middle. So the appositive is extra info. It's extra. It's nice, but not necessary. It can be taken out, and there's a sentence left over. There's a noun or a pronoun within the appositive, but it's not a complete sentence. So this part right here in red, this is a word or a phrase. It's not a complete sentence. The complete sentence actually happens without the appositive. The appositive is extra. It clarifies, identifies, or renames the noun or pronoun that comes in front of it. So for example, Miss Naz, my English teacher, is weird. My English teacher clarifies who Miss Naz is or renames her. Because if you don't have an English teacher named Miss Naz, you might not know. Who's Miss Naz? Is she the crazy neighbor lady? Is she a person in a book? No, she's my English teacher. Putting that word, that phrase, my English teacher, in there actually gives us some more information for the reader to understand who Miss Naz is. Think about that last example on the first slide, fudge. It looks cold and exhausted. My only experience with fudge is the type of candy. The author had to put in that it was a man in the sentence so that I would understand who he really was. In this case, Miss Naz and my English teacher, they're the same person, just with different identifiers, like a name and a job. So how do we punctuate in a positive? Because appositives are extra information, we set them off with commas. Those commas work kind of like parentheses. They tell us what's within is nice, but not necessary in order to have a complete sentence. Appositives, like prepositional phrases last week, are just adding detail and clarity. For example, my dog, Champ, only has 3 legs. If I remove the word champ, I still have a sentence left over. My dog only has 3 legs. But it's nice to know your dog's name. So does that have a sentence, or is that a complete sentence? Yeah, dog is the subject, verb is has, and it does express a complete thought. Champ just gives us extra information about the dog's name. Sometimes you're going to have to fix a missing comma. Example 1. And this might be something you would see like on a test. They might give you something that looks like Jake, my brother loves to snowboard. Jake, my brother loves to snowboard. You would turn it into this because the extra information is actually my brother. So I would put commas on either side of that. It has nothing to do with the sentence except for giving us clarification about who Jake is. So let's look at example 2. Everyone's favorite meal, spaghetti and meatballs, was served last night. Here we have 1 comma. So this 1 comma, if we think about last week, we're saying that this is extra information and this would be our sentence. And that's true, but also, what is spaghetti and meatballs really doing here? So ask yourself, what is the extra information here? And yourself is going to answer spaghetti and meatballs. That's the extra information telling us what the favorite meal is. So make sure there's a comma on either side. Everyone's favorite meal, spaghetti and meatballs, was served last night. You can also add appositives to clarify or add detail. Remember, this is kind of that important part earlier with that fudge example. Jojo really terrifies me. Now you might be thinking, this is a complete sentence. It has a subject, a verb, a complete thought. Jojo is the subject, terrifies is the verb, gives me a complete thought. But the reader might be thinking, like, who the heck is Jojo and why is Jojo so terrifying? Is Jojo an animal? Is it a person? Is it a crazy bow-wearing reality dance star? So you have to add an appositive to clarify for your reader. Because Jojo really isn't any of those things. Jojo is a creepy clown. Jojo, comma, the creepy clown, comma, really terrifies me. Because the creepy clown is a lot different than Jojo, my dog. Like, the writer has to clarify that for the reader. Lastly, you can actually use appositives to combine sentences that are simple and repetitive. Like, they're fine. My friend is vegetarian. That's a sentence. My friend loves peanut butter and banana sandwiches. That's a sentence. But those are the same those are sentences that are connected, and we could connect them in a lot of ways. I could say my friend is vegetarian, comma, and he loves peanut butter and banana sandwiches. Like, that's perfectly acceptable. But I could also, like, vary it up and use an appositive instead. So they're a little repetitive by using the word my friend. Repetitive is boring. We don't want to bore our reader. So I'd ask myself which of the things in the sentence are actually the same. Vegetarian and my friend. They're the same person. So I'm going to use one as the appositive. My friend, comma, vegetarian, comma, loves peanut butter and banana sandwiches. Or I could switch it up and say vegetarian, comma, my friend, comma, loves peanut butter and banana sandwiches. Because they're the same, it works either way. But notice, whichever one I'm saying is the extra information is the one that goes inside the commas. So watch one more time. All American is in its 3rd season. It's my favorite television show. 2 perfectly fine simple sentences, but if I wanted, I could combine them into one sentence. So which of the things in the sentences are actually the same? All American is the same thing as my favorite TV show. My favorite TV, so I'm going to use one as the appositive. All American, comma, my favorite television show, comma, is in its 3rd season. Or I could say my favorite television show, comma, All American, comma, is in its 3rd season. So remember, we set off extra info like appositives by using those commas. The appositive renames, identifies, or adds detail about the noun or pronoun right in front of it. The appositive is a word or a phrase, not a complete sentence. And if it's removed, you should still have a complete sentence left over. So if I took out that red appositive in the middle, I'd be left with a sentence. So this is a nice little graphic reminder of what it's supposed to look like. Remember, if you have any questions, be sure to write them down so that you can ask your teacher as the guided practice begins.